What it do, what it do. This is the Brothers on Books podcast, where we find great books that will give you real value and actionable steps and have fun in the process. Please reach out to us at brothersonbooks@gmail.com for any book recommendations, or if you'd like to be a guest host for a particular book you have in mind. A great review or rating on whichever platform you're listening to this would be greatly appreciated. If you can think of any friend, family member, or coworker that might like this episode, please pass it along. For the original episodes, the OGs, please visit brothersonbooks.com, and please see the link below for 20% off your matcha needs with Encha Matcha. I am Jack Allweil, and with me, as always, is Alex Allweil, my brother. Al, how you doing today?
Doing good, Jack. How are you?
Good. And we have returning guests for the fourth time. Godmother Sharon Applebaum.
Hi, everybody.
I think this would put Sharon as the clear-cut #1 guest of the show. You've nearly been a part of probably around 5% of the shows.
Yep.
Okay. That sounds good.
Pretty impressive. Pretty impressive.
Okay. And I'm willing to be on more.
Good to know. So I guess with that said, Jack, what book are we doing?
So when this episode releases, it will be Christmas Day, and in honor of that, we are reading Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, a classic, a book I read back in the 6th grade and thought I could use a refresher, and that is why I picked it. Plus, it's that time of the season. 'Tis the season. So
yeah, I guess just quickly looking at Charles Dickens' Wikipedia, he has 2 middle names, John Huffam. It's an interesting middle name. So he's an English novelist and social critic. He was, I guess, broadly considered as the greatest novelist of the Victorian era. Most of his popular books would be this, I guess, Christmas Carol, due to its length, is considered a novella, but his popular novels would be considered Oliver Twist, Great Expectations, and A Tale of Two Cities. So I think with that said, Jack, what were your initial thoughts?
well, I enjoyed reading it again. I think it's a great book. I wish all books could be this concise, to the point, give us something to think about. And I think the message is strong. I like reflecting on where life has gone and how we can reflect and make it more positive going forward.
Well, I just want to say that I looked up some questions that we could discuss going along with what you said, Jack.
Awesome. Sharon, this was your first Dickens book.
Yes.
We've heard.
Yes.
How?
It
And
was,
what did you think of your first Dickens book?
it was okay. Well, I never read Dickens, but it was okay.
Okay.
Tough critic as always. It's only
Dickens, he's only okay.
I just gave that introduction where I described him as the greatest novelist of the Victorian era, and I guess just to you, he's just okay.
What did you think, Alex? I see Jack liked it a lot. What did you think?
Yeah, I also thought it was okay.
Okay.
I guess I would say I like the message. I find it actually kind of tough to read just because of the old English and his vast vocabulary. Because I remember in 6th grade, the teacher actually gave us vocab words with the page numbers, and we had to go through and actually look up all these vocab words. And that's what I remember from that process. But yeah, I mean, you'd have to be looking up a lot of words. My vocabulary, at least. If I really wanted to, but I like some of the descriptions, and I like the message.
Yeah, I mean, I would also, I guess, say that as well. The verbiage is somewhat annoying. I mean, it's just different. Like they just talked and they wrote in a different style, going on, 150 years ago, as they do today, which makes it somewhat difficult reading, I guess, literature from that point. I remember we actually, I mean, not to go on too much of a tangent, but we kind of actually talked about that when we were talking about the Communist Manifesto, of how difficult it is just to read because it's like written in such a different time period. But yes, well, Jack, I mean, you like the message. What was the message you took, I guess, from the book?
So for people that haven't read it, the idea is, Ebenezer Scrooge, this old, is he a bookkeeper and an accountant? I don't know what he technically is, but some financial guy.
I thought he was some type of almost banker, like,
Okay.
because they kept talking about like giving interest. I felt like we talked maybe about interest a couple times.
I wasn't quite sure what his official title was, but anyways, he's not particularly liked by his friends and family,
He's not
and
liked at all.
and he gets a visit from these three ghosts of the Christmas past, of the present, and then of the future. And each ghost or spirit gives him something to think about or reflect on in his life. I don't know. Would you have anything to add? I mean, pretty sure that's the way the chapters are basically broken down.
Yeah, I mean, I think the point is the point of the spirits is to show that like when I thought he was a kid, he had some happiness, but in his older age, he had become, in his own words, just like a, kind of a mean, nasty man, and he was always saying bah humbug and never seemed happy. And the point was to show that, he could still be happy if he focused. I mean, my main takeaway was like, you can achieve happiness even if you're like materialistically not wealthy, but you will be sort of unhappy if you push people out of your life, is what I would say.
That goes, and one of the questions I was going to say we should discuss is what Alex has already brought up, which is about a rebirth and transformation, like how he changed. He first, when he saw that he was a nice, lonely kid, and then in the past, and he saw what people were thinking of him in the present. Then he realized it, and then he went to the future, and then he realized how his life had been and how he could change it.
Would you say that most people get like harder over time, like slightly more cold with their life experiences?
It depends. There are lots of people who just become bitter and they just become mad about how their life was. Other people take advantage of the fact that their life was not so great. They look at it and they try to change it, try to make it better and change it for the people around them. So I guess it just depends on who you are.
And do you feel like most people really change, like their whole personality change it? Like, how do you, like Sharon, like how do you feel like if you had to characterize like phases of your life, how would you kind of characterize them?
Like like past, present, what are you talking about?
Or kind of like so like I guess the example like with me is like I viewed myself very much as like a soccer player early on, like, and that is kind of how I associated my character with, and now I've kind of phased out of that, and now but I do feel like I'm a little like harsher about the world and just a little colder in some ways, and not like that child exuberance and happiness is left somewhat.
I would say that when I was with my past was that I was a quiet, shy person and I never spoke up. But now as I'm getting older to the present and future, I speak out more and I give my opinions more. And I still have a great deal of feeling for the underdog. I mean, I always did, and it's just getting even more that I feel bad about the underdog. But I must say that I have become very cynical about how people are dealing with things in the world and what is going on in the world. So the past couple months have been a big shock for me. With not trying to be political, but since the war in Israel, I've gotten to be much more cynical about what's going on in our country. And I was really, really cynical before, but I've gotten worse. What about you, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, I feel, sort of like how I associate myself. Yeah, kind of like when I was younger, sort of like Jack, I viewed myself mainly as a soccer player. Now I would say most of my, I mean, free time I spend playing pickleball, so I definitely associate more. I view myself more as like a pickleball player now, and that does shape a lot of my identity. As kind of weird as it sounds to say,
And what way?
like most of my time outside of work is focused on either one, playing, or two, thinking about it. So I'm like constantly kind of engrossed in it. But also sort of echoing both of what the two of you have said, I feel like I've also become, in some regards, much less unsympathetic to other people and kind of bitter as well. Uh, I feel like I can be sympathetic, but I do sort of feel like I've become much, I guess, colder as I've gotten older towards people, which is not necessarily like good. I don't think it's a good thing, but uh, I feel like I've maybe almost become more selfish. Like I tend to care less about other people's problems and I'll just focus more on myself, I would say.
That also could be your age too, because as you get older and you have different responsibilities and you get to meet different kinds of people, that could change.
That's true, but to be fair, currently I almost have zero responsibility right now in my life.
Except getting to the pickleball game.
That's my, I mean,
But,
I do I do my work, and other than that, I don't really have a lot of responsibility. So
What did you think of, what did you think? So like you could hear the tone of the book change and Ebenezer Scrooge's demeanor change. Like even though he is like this, older, harsher, colder man, when he reflects on his childhood, you can hear him kind of like laugh and giggle, and he kind of brings that to talking to the spirits and like, oh, this was good. I can walk this like, with my eyes shut, because they're taking him back to his childhood playgrounds and neighborhoods. And what did you think of just like reflecting on your childhood as a way to put things in perspective?
well, one of the questions I see that we have here is that it's a comparison of the Christmas spirit and the greed and selfishness that he shows. Okay, so what happened? I mean, he's obviously very greedy. He's very selfish. How do we compare that to the Christmas spirit that the rest of the people in the book, like what's that family's name? The Crickets. Yeah.
I
So
couldn't,
anyway,
I couldn't pronounce it.
the right. So anyways, that's one of the things that we could talk about is could we say, can they live together? Can they be together, have the Christmas spirit and still be have such greed and what's that, selfishness? That's right.
Mm.
Can you?
I mean, sure, right? Like it's not, those two things you should never, I would say you should never be in an absolute extreme of those two positions. Like you should never be 100% selfish where you only will do something for yourself, versus you should never be in a like 100% giving, I guess, just Christmas spirit, unless I'm misinterpreting like your question. But like you can't just give away all of your possessions, right? At a given, I mean, I guess you could, but like you as a human still have needs. Like it should be a balance, right? Sorry. Just to end, I feel like there should be a balance of how much, give and take you have in your life.
And could you also, like, now to go along with that, what about, what's that they said that here about the hold on one sec, you keep talking, I'm looking for something, keep talking.
I was just gonna say, on the point of like him being like, quote unquote greedy. I feel like a lot of the media has associated like really wealthy people with greed. And I've been having a lot of discussions with people on this, and like I think it's like a bad message because it implies you cannot be wealthy and like
Morally
charitable.
just.
Yeah, like you're either greedy and wealthy or honest and like poor.
Poor.
Like you can't be honest and wealthy. Like, and I do not like that message. And we brought it up. I recently had a discussion with this guy about it's in a lot of movies, but like in Spider-Man, like Uncle Ben is talking to Peter Parker and like, oh, no, we're honest people. Like, and he's talking about like the wealthy guys at that company or whatever. And it's implying that just because they're wealthy, they're dishonest. And I really don't like that message. And I don't know if this.
I mean, it drives me nuts. I feel like I hear that all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so you're saying that it's just one-dimensional?
It's just, yeah, I don't think it's a fair assumption. I mean, some of the most charitable people I know have a lot of money. And I don't feel like they were dishonest like they worked hard, they made a lot of money, and now they're able to give a lot of money. And I don't think they're cold, hard, old, bah humbugs or whatever.
So the problem is often of the definition of what is wealthy, because the people I hear make that argument, in my eyes, are all wealthy, but they would never say that they're wealthy because they view being wealthy as like essentially being like Elon Musk. But it's like silly because, I mean, essentially, like I would say almost all of my friends are wealthy and they're all like, for the most part, good people. But they would never classify themselves like that because it's just other people that have more money than them are the ones that are wealthy and evil.
Well, I guess the way I've always thought about that is like if someone says they're rich, that would be like an income metric. Like on paper, you're making a lot of money.
Okay,
but wealth, I've always, and I think Kiyosaki brought this up, like should be measured in like time. In terms of like, if you stopped working, how long would you be able to continue your lifestyle? And that is true wealth. Like if you can continue your lifestyle without that active income. That's a definition I've used, at least.
Sure, that's fair.
And why do we think that Scrooge ended up the way he did? Do you have any opinions? I mean, I hear you both saying that just because you're wealthy, which Scrooge was, that doesn't mean you have to be mean and miserable like he was. And
well,
so
I guess I would point at that argument and say he was not necessarily wealthy. He might have been rich, but he just kept working. So to me, it seemed like if he stopped working, he wouldn't have money to live on. So I would not characterize him as wealthy. I guess that's how I would describe it, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, but don't forget that we're talking about the mid-19th century. So what we would consider what was considered rich at that point would not be considered rich at this point. And so for the people that were around him, he had more money than they did, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
So
right. I just interpreted that he liked working, I guess, to your point, Jack.
Okay. Maybe he didn't need to work and he just kept working
like doing it, right?
Because
he liked it. And that's all he had to do because he had no friends and everyone hated him.
Or maybe it wasn't necessarily he liked doing it, but that's the only thing he knew. Because in like the Ghost of Christmas Past took him back and he was like, I believe, an intern with this financier. Yeah. And it seemed like he was working a lot. So maybe it was just like a momentum type of scenario where that's what he was taught and that's what he did. And he never really thought twice about it.
Oh, don't forget when he was young in the past that he had a woman that he was engaged to, or they were almost ready to be engaged. And then she said, well, you've changed, which I guess meant after he started working more. And another point that I thought about the past is that they said he was a lonely child. So that might have something, in my mind, that might have something to do why he worked so hard and why he was so miserable to other people. He felt like, and I think he said that I did it. So why can't everybody else? Why am I being criticized? Oh, and also, okay, also he could have, just because he had always been so lonely, he might not have felt comfortable with people, and then he's just started taking it out on them, his loneliness, his anger about being so lonely. Maybe he just started taking it out on other people, and that became just normal for him.
Yeah.
Well, loneliness is I don't know, this is also a tangent, but I don't know if you guys have seen some of those statistics on loneliness and how detrimental it is to your health. I think it was ranked as like the equivalent of smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. It's like feeling lonely.
Because loneliness is different than being lonely or being alone. I mean, loneliness and being is different than being alone, because you can be among people and still feel lonely. It just it's part of you, how you think about yourself and how you think about how people are relating to you.
Interesting.
So maybe, I mean, we don't know, but maybe
Yeah.
things happened to him that made him feel like people don't really like me. I'm always, and they're never part of my life, and so I'll just keep on working, and people don't appreciate what I'm doing. I mean, something like that. I always get on a tangent about things, but anyways. He probably wasn't that bad of a person after. If he was able to change after he saw what had gone on, what he was missing, he was able to change. I don't think most people could change that much from being the miserable person he was. Remember that movie with Jimmy Stewart, It's a Wonderful Life? That banker never got any better, did he? At the end, did he get any better?
I've never actually seen that movie.
What about you, Jack?
It's been a long time.
Okay.
So I guess that was one of my thoughts was, is it realistic that he would change on a dime like that? Like, do you think most people would change so drastically even after seeing that? Or do you think most people would just be like, I should change, and then proceed not to?
Well, maybe it's different if spirits come to see you and ghosts. I mean, you might think differently about things if for some reason some ghosts were coming to tell you what you're doing wrong.
Right, but think about how many people I'll just use driving. Like, someone has like a near accident because they're driving, because they're like texting or something, and you say to yourself, yeah, I shouldn't do that. And you probably don't do it for like, a couple, like a week or 2 weeks, but then slowly it kind of just, you just form back into your old habits. And the next thing you know is you're like talking on your phone while you're driving, you're texting while you're driving. I mean, I feel like habits are very hard to break, especially bad habits that are ingrained. Or, every year, if you go to a gym on January 2nd, it's packed. And then by like, February 5th, it's like empty. It's like, why?
Right. Exactly. Or how many people are going to go on a diet on January 1st, and by the end, by Valentine's Day, they're already eating all their candy.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of, okay, go ahead, sir.
Go on. No, go.
I was going to say some of what, like when he was, I think the ghost of Christmas Future helped him kind of, I think if most people could see what the future would be based off of their decisions, then they might be a little more motivated. But a lot of people like don't really, I don't know. I'm not sure how often people think of what
their behavior.
Yeah, what their behaviors actually lead to.
Right.
So it's kind of
the consequences of their behavior.
Yeah. And it actually made me think a lot about, we read a book called Taking Stock. It was by this doctor, Doc G, that wrote about these patients in hospice that he was interviewing at end of life and all the things they regretted. And a lot of it and the things they also remembered a lot of. And it was just a lot of like memory, like very worldly experiences and connections with people, and they regretted losing connection with certain people. And this book kind of made me rethink about that book.
Well, I think sort of piggybacking back to that, in that book, he talked a lot about sort of what we were just talking. Like he had patients that were rich, where their family was there, but in his eyes, it seemed like they totally didn't care about their family member. And then he had patients that were, I guess, what would be considered poor, and like had a totally loving family. And it was kind of sort of posed the question of like who is
Richard.
actually better off. But yet again, I feel like you can be both rich and have a loving family. So, you know.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. You can't be rich and what?
No, you can be both. There can be a scenario where you are both materialistically rich and you have a very much loving family. Like these are not mutually exclusive things.
That is true. That is true. And what I was going to say is sort of going to a different route. I was surprised as I read this that what Victorian England was like. Because I forgot that they had the workhouses and you went to jail if you were poor. And I forgot that, because I know that she was very prim and proper, Victoria, but I didn't. And anyways, I was surprised that I hadn't even thought of that, what kind of life and the life that people had. They had absolutely no help from the government. They had no help. They had no unions. They didn't, who knows what kind of jobs they were able to get. And then there were the people like the people in Downton Abbey, which you probably don't know about, you too.
I know that people in London used to get taxed based off of how many windows they had. So if you go to London now, because it was a sign of wealth, like you could, oh yeah, I have like 16 windows, so I pay more in taxes. Like,
oh wow.
So now if you go to London, a lot of the houses, those old houses, will just have bricks over certain windows. So like, okay, now I don't have to pay as much in taxes. I don't have as many windows.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, so anything else that we want to discuss? There was another thing that they were wanting to discuss about the difference between youth and old age, how you look, and you were saying that at the beginning, how you looked at things when you were younger as in a different way than you do as you get older. And as you get even as old as I am, you still look at things differently than you did when I was in my 30s and 40s.
So what are you, 35, Sharon?
Yes, that's right. Well, like
you just turned 35 again, right?
No, I'm 39. So anyways, that was it. That was an interesting question also, which we did discuss about how things are so different when you're young, and as you get older into your, like the age you two are, it's getting, you start to see things differently than you did when you were, in your 20s, your teens, and you get to your 40s, it's even different too. I mean, every decade really is different. You look at life differently.
There's a thought experiment. I think it's Nietzsche. It's one of those philosophers, but he was, I think it was Nietzsche, and Nietzsche was always sick. And he did this thought experiment where, like, if he had to replay his life over and over again, would he be doing the same thing? So like, I feel like it's kind of like this, because you can see where your life's going. And like, so if you don't, if you were given the option that you had to relive your life over and over, and you're not looking forward to that, you probably should be doing something different. And I feel like that kind of goes with Scrooge's scene, because with the Ghost of Christmas Future, he can see, like, if he continues doing his actions, he's not going to be happy. So he immediately makes a change. But I often think about that thought experiment, because you gotta, like, you're the only one that lives with your decisions at the end of the day. Like,
is there something you would change?
Well, wait, excuse me. What was the result of his test? Did he decide that he did regret, that he regretted things and he thought he wished he had done things differently, or was he glad that he did what he did?
You mean Scrooge?
No, that's what I
Nietzsche?
Yeah.
Oh, I think Nietzsche died pretty early.
So we don't know.
But I think he was sick so often. I think he was like in and out of hospitals that he just thought about these things. And I think he was quite frail. I don't think he had a long life. I don't know too much about him.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
And
so
I
Jack,
think we go on. I'm sorry, Alex. Go.
I was just gonna ask Jack, when you've done this thought experiment, is there something you would change?
I mean, I feel like I changed things way more than most people. I've left multiple jobs that other people absolutely would not have done. And
Right, but when you're doing the thought experiment, would you change those decisions?
well, I mean, sure. So some things. I mean, it's kind of, some things are not fair. Like if you get injured doing something, like, yeah, of course, after the fact, you say, oh, I wish I didn't play in that game or play in, but that's not really a fair, but it's more like the decisions,
Right.
like, okay, do I put my time and effort into this activity versus this other activity? Am I excited about reliving my life where I'm spending dozens of hours in a library cranking out actuarial problems? I don't know.
Yeah, that's because that's what I was thinking, especially as I get older. I think to myself, I regret really the job, what I ended up doing with my life as far as teaching. I like teaching, but I might have done something differently if I had more courage and it had been a little later in life when women could do a few more things.
Well, what would you have done, Sharon?
That's the thing. I don't know, but I don't know. But I did have a problem when I was younger of not taking a chance on something. If I thought I wanted to, well, the only thing I ever took a chance on, believe it or not, I took the exam for law school.
I didn't know that
Oh,
about you.
I didn't know
I
that
know
either.
you didn't. I think your father he gave me a book I should study. So I did do that, but I didn't do that bad. I got I think 1,000 out of 1,700 or something. That wasn't that bad. But anyways, I decided I really didn't want to be a lawyer. So that was that.
What age were you when you did that?
I was already teaching. So, and your father was already a lawyer.
Okay.
So probably
So
my
still 35.
Yeah, yeah, I just did that last year. So anyways, but sometimes you end up regretting the things you did or the things you didn't do.
Mhm.
And I think you two are too young, even though I'm 35, I still haven't knowledge of people in their 60s and 70s the same. But as you get older, you'll think to yourself, did I really make the right decision about this thing or that thing? Or am I sorry I didn't do what I wish I had done? I wish I had the energy, the courage, the knowledge to do something differently. Like Jack, maybe it's too early to ask you, but are you glad that you went to that you're an actuary, that you went to college, you did that, and then you took all those tests?
I think I am happy with the skill set I acquired, and I liked learning the material. And I mean, all things considered, I was getting paid to study, so that was a pretty good gig, and I could start investing early and compounding early. So I guess I did like it, and I guess I just wasn't exposed to some other things that I would have been interested in. But had I started, I might have done like YouTube, like right out of the gate, honestly.
Not going to college? Were you not going to college?
Possibly, I don't know. I'm not sure. Well, if I was a kid now, I don't think I would go to college. I think but it's easy to say because now I know some of the things and I've been exposed to some of the things. But I feel like I would have started making money immediately as like some tradesman and just started investing my money. Like that's what I would that's what I would tell someone who's like 18 right now.
Okay.
What about you, Alex? What about you? Would you change what you decided to what you are?
Uh, so I mean, just like professional wise, I guess I'll just start with like moments in life. I had a job offer right out of college in San Diego. So I always sort of think it would have been interesting if I would have taken that job instead of my position at Vanderbilt. Uh, The other thing that recently has been really sticking with me is the first time I played pickleball was 2017. And I remember talking with dad saying like, yo, this is kind of fun. And he's like, yo, if you think it's like, you're young, like it's for old people, you should just continue to play. You should just play tennis recreationally. And then I didn't play again for like, the better part of like almost 3.5 years. So the thing like I always sort of think to myself, if I would have gone really into it in 2017 is, could I now be a full-time player? Uh, and there's, it's impossible to say. As far as my profession, I also don't want to blame dad I'm not blaming dad for me not doing that. I'm just saying that was a conversation we had.
Yeah.
As far as my profession, like, do I love chemistry? I mean, I definitely don't love chemistry like some people love chemistry. But I feel like going to grad school definitely helped me develop in ways that I don't think I would have if I hadn't gone to grad school. I feel like it just made me a lot more mature, a lot more independent. It gives you a lot of confidence in yourself that really whatever is going on, you're able to sort of figure it out and move on with your life, which is like a somewhat empowering feeling.
Yeah, that is true.
But to just echo Jack's, if I was giving advice to an 18-year-old, I would also agree that I think you should go do some type of paid trades, like trades apprenticeship, and then just immediately start making money, invest your money, and then continue working, doing whatever it is whatever trade you're doing. But no debt and you're getting paid immediately almost.
But then you can't really advance in a lot of the jobs if you don't have a college degree.
Sure. I mean, you can start your own business. If you're a plumber, you can start a plumbing business. You can
Well,
be a
that's
small
true.
business owner. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
there's a lot of stuff you can do. And you don't need like, I mean, yes, to probably be in corporate America, you need a degree, but there's a lot, you don't have to be in corporate America. Like, you can start a building company. I mean, you can do a lot of stuff. I mean, also, it's not saying it's easy to do all those things. Yeah, again, it takes time. Uh, But a lot of people, I mean, we've had a lot of people on. I feel like we've talked a lot about college in some of our books. What was the? I feel like a lot of people go to college and get sort of worthless degree. Like they don't have a plan. And it's not like it's not like I had a plan. I just kind of kept doing what I was getting A's in, and now I have a PhD. It's kind of just how it worked out. I'm guessing. I don't know, Jack. Were you somewhat similar to that?
Well, I always liked math, so I always just figured math will probably make money in some way. But I didn't know anything about money, honestly. And I still, even when I left college, I didn't know anything about money. Um, the best thing about college for me was I had no clue what an actuary was before I got to Ann Arbor. And I didn't take my first actuary class till junior year. So had I not gone, I wouldn't have been exposed to any of those people. So for me, it was very good. It's just, but yeah, a lot of people major in bad degrees that don't really have a good return on investment. And yeah, we've talked about this on It Is Possible by Jason Brown.
And with Aaron Clary as well.
And Aaron Clary.
Yeah, he just was on.
I mean, my take is the more I've studied is if the government would just get out of lending, a lot of these problems would go away. That's my take.
What do you mean? If they would stop lending money to people go to college?
Yeah, because if you're a private lender, are you going to lend money to a girl that wants to go major in art history? Are you going to lend her $200,000 and
Expect
do
her
you
to be
think
able to
she's
pay
going to
back.
be able to pay back at a reasonable interest rate over? Because no private lender would probably do that unless if they get their parent to co-sign somehow. But the college costs are inflated because the government approves these loans to any sort of major. It doesn't matter the major. Like they're just kind of willy-nilly giving money out.
Do you think that if either one of you had taken a gap year, like kids seem to be doing now, would that have given you more direction if you started college a year late? Does that help? Or I'm not really sure why people
I
take
think I think it would help. And I think Raina, like our sister Raina, she seemed much more mature than we did. I don't know if it's just a female male thing, but I felt like I was pretty much flowing through college. I did not have a lot of maturity or direction, and Raina seemed in some ways to be much more like together, like with just real world experience.
So I think that's more to do with the fact that she more or less was on her own. Like, I don't know, like when you say gap year, like I think if you just take a gap year and you're traveling around, doing God knows what, I don't think that really helps. I think if you take a gap year where you're like working and living on your own, I think that would. I think just living on your own, paying your own bills, having to deal with your own finances, not being able, not that like your parents shouldn't help you out, but like not relying solely on your parents. I feel like that is what matures people the fastest. And I feel like that would help. So like sort of what Jack was saying, I feel like I don't necessarily know that it's the fact that Raina took time off. I feel like it's the fact that Raina was independent, which is why she's, I guess, more mature when she started college, like at her time starting college, like why it seems like she has a plan of like what she should be doing. Just my 2 cents.
And going back to the people that you said that shouldn't be getting college loans, what is there out in the world for people to do? That's my question. I mean, if you don't go to college, and not that you go to college and you can get a job, but what is there in the world for people to do?
Well, I guess I meet people all the time that have college degrees that are still working at Starbucks or working at coffee shops. So there's no reason they couldn't just go directly to that.
But if you want a direction in life, if you want to make something of your life, working at Starbucks is not going to do that.
It's a tough question.
That's actually not true, because you can work your way up through a Starbucks. You can be a manager, like you can become a manager of some business, and you can be fine. Like, as an 18-year-old, like you can just go get a job, and then you can like work your way up through any type of, Starbucks, or you can work at a restaurant. You can work your way up through a restaurant, become good with restaurants. You can then open your own restaurant. I mean, there are avenues.
I have heard of a couple to give like alternatives to student loans. There are a couple programs I've heard about that basically invest in you like a stock. So I know Purdue has a program where you're not paying out of pocket to begin with, but then they take like a percentage of your future earnings. So like depending on what major you pick, they want a percentage, and they'll just let you go to school for free. So it's not debt. It's like selling equity in like your money making machine as a person, which is that's another alternative that's kind of interesting, but I haven't heard too much about it lately.
But then also there's the thing that if they don't have loans from the government, then only wealthier people, not wealthy, but wealthier people can go to college.
That's not true. That's not true. That's not what he's saying.
But
I'm saying,
Jack's saying.
But I'm saying
Jack said that. Yeah. No, I didn't say that. I'm just telling you my thoughts.
But just because the government isn't backing the loans doesn't mean there won't be loans for people to go to college.
Yeah, because if you had a person that says, I'm 18 years old, I love math and science, I want to be a mechanical engineer, here's my plan. It's like you're kind of writing a business plan to a bank saying, I'm requesting money, college is this much, and then here's the forecast of what I think I'll be making after school, and this is how I'll pay it back. And that
makes sense. But what about the people who go into college and don't know really what they want to do?
Well, I guess that might be a place for your gap year potentially. I
mean, it would definitely make you take stock in your life if you had to come to a bank and like justify why you should be able to go to college. I don't think you would have so many people just willy-nilly going.
Hmm, it's an interesting idea. I never really thought of those things.
Because I mean, just the way I've described this, but like any other type of loan, the people are judged individually. Like when you buy a house, you are judged individually by the bank. Like, a college degree in many cases costs as much or more than a house. So like, is it just lump sum loans given out? Just my thoughts.
Okay, interesting. Interesting how we got to that from Christmas Carol. But it's always interesting to listen, to talk to you two about what your thoughts are on different things, because I don't really get the chance to talk to you. So this is fun for me.
Yeah. So any closing thoughts or other questions we want to discuss?
No, I think we pretty much did it all.
It's probably
I
enjoying
just want
talking.
you to appreciate, no, I just want you to appreciate the fact that I went through the efforts of getting the questions in case we didn't have anything to say.
It's very much appreciated, Sharon.
All right, well, don't forget that I'm up to doing other books with you. So, I always enjoy this. So
You will
Okay.
absolutely be on next season, I'm sure.
when is the season over with?
We have one more book in this season, and then we'll start the next season.
Okay, are we going to do that book on tyranny?
Well, yes, but we were trying not to say it on this episode.
What?
Yes, we are, but
I'm sorry, was I not supposed to say that?
It's okay.
It's okay.
Don't worry about it.
I don't know what I'm talking about. Ignore me. I'm talking to the people who are listening to this. So. But they know to ignore me anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Your godmother Sharon. You will probably be the first to hit. You will probably be the first guest to hit double digits at the rate you're going. So
I'll probably be the what?
The first guest to hit double digits.
Okay, and and I'm sure you can allow another 30-year-old into your group.
Right. Jake, you wanna take us out?
Sure. So with that, please reach out to us at brothersonbooks@gmail.com for any book recommendations, or if you'd like to be a guest host for a particular book you have in mind, a great review or rating on whichever platform you're listening to this would be greatly appreciated. If you can think of any friend, family member, or coworker that might like this episode, please pass it along. For the original episodes, the OGs, please visit brothersonbooks.com. I am Jack Allweil, and with me, as always, is Alex Allweil, and of course, guest Godmother Sharon. Until next time.
Okay, bye.
Oh, yeah. What book are we reading next time, actually, before we leave?
We are doing The Player of Games by Ian M. Banks. It's actually sort of a science fiction book about board games, or just
Okay.
strategy games as a whole.
Oh, that sounds very nice, but I think I'll pass.
From Sharon, I don't know if people know this, but you and I were supposed to review a series of science fiction fantasy books probably last summer that I will just say that I read and I was ready for you to come on for, and you backed out because you couldn't.
Because I don't like science fiction. That's why. I read 2 books, I think, or maybe just one. And I said, I know why I don't like this book. I just don't like science fiction. So, but we can certainly think about doing other kinds of books together.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay. Until next time.
Okay. Have a nice evening. Have a happy New Year. Happy Hanukkah to you.
Yeah. Happy Hanukkah.